Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to our virtual presentation, SoTL Brokering from the Boundaries, a Partnership of Hearts and Minds. Today, we are excited to come together to share our lived experiences as a group of scholars made of diverse mix of faculty, staff, and graduate students, representing 6 institutions from 4 countries, most of whom were relatively new to SoTL when we met. When we first came together through the 2019 iSoTL International Collaborative Writing Group, we had no idea that our partnership of heart and mind would continue beyond our commitment to write and publish an article together. Today, the goal of our conversation is to explore how SoTL has kept us together, in hopes that we can inform how the SoTL space can resist hierarchical, epistemological, methodological, and disciplinary boundaries and encourage other SoTL practitioners and brokers to self-reflect on their own contexts and the context of those around them, and the possibilities to aspire to. This image here is a representation of themes that have come up in many of our discussions around SoTL brokering and the different experiences of tensions, the types of positions and contexts we move between, and how we do so as proactive agents of SoTL brokering. Our SoTL partnership helps us traverse multiple boundaries in our diverse contexts, circumvent hierarchies of senior versus junior scholars, faculty versus students, teaching faculty versus research faculty, and dominant epistemologies, methodologies versus emergent. Build individual resilience in challenging professional contexts, strategize to support and lift up our colleagues. With that, I would like to cordially invite you all into one of our discussions that we have on a weekly basis. Julie, Heather, myself, Analise, Barbara, Genevieve, Andrea, and Anne. I would like to start with the question, how has your perspective of SoTL and brokering changed in our year of discussions with Genevieve?
Thank you, Analise. So a few years ago, I had discovered through a previous writing group that really for me, collaborative writing was a way to sustain me and to see through some of my SoTL research projects. And so after that point, I started to initiate other collaborations and I sought out groups like this one. Then I found that brokering was really about finding a space for everyone, no matter their level of experience or expertise, disciplinary background, to come together and gain something valuable in terms of their understanding of SoTL and their productivity in SoTL. What I found in this group that was a new discovery is that really somehow we sort of found each other and became a compassionate group of women who showed up pretty much weekly, no matter what, and supported one another through very tough times. I mean, it was 2020 after all, and we all lived through various hardships in 2020. Mine being a long separation process where actually I wasn't able to show up every week. I found though that it was very uplifting to be able to be real about our struggles and to continue our work with SoTL together, despite all of the obstacles in our paths. And I really found that empathetic kind of approach to be something new that I want to keep moving forward in my brokering.
Thank you, Genevieve, for very nicely articulating how the heart comes into our weekly discussions. With that, I'd like to move to a slightly other perspective with Heather and how the mind has come into our partnership around brokering.
I know, Annalise, I'm supposed to talk about the mind, but I just want to say one thing. When we all went to Atlanta and met each other in person for the first time, Annalise and I shared a tiny house, and that really bonded us. So back to the mind. Until my experience with our group, my informal leadership role evolved in isolation from others outside of my institution. I was feeling my way through SoTL work and the work in my institution that I helped launch and guide. But despite reflecting by doing 2 public presentations, working on an emergent publication, I still needed opportunities for sustained reflection with others. who had assumed a similar brokering role. So this group provided that opportunity for me because one, we were able to reflect in action, like Donald Schoen's concept. Two, we developed a collective theoretical framework for thinking about brokering. You saw one sample of that in the slide. And the third, we were actually able to conduct research about brokering in not only, through one article that was part of our group, our original group, but we continued to conduct this research because we had not exhausted the subject.
Thank you very much, Heather. So as we continue our discussion around brokering and boundaries, I wanted to invite both Julie and Barbara to talk about what boundaries they cross most often and why. Julie, would you like to start?
Sure, thanks, Analise. I find myself crossing, positional boundaries, disciplinary boundaries, hierarchical boundaries almost every day in my role. And while I work mainly with academics, I am a third space professional, meaning my role doesn't really fit that neatly into either box, either the professional or the academic ones. And so I think naturally in order to work with academics, I cross positional and disciplinary boundaries to create connections, form relationships, and build rapport with people at my institution to create hopefully positive changes in teaching and learning, which includes brokering SoTL, which I'm very new to. And in my research intensive institution, I think there exists an unspoken hierarchical difference between disciplinary research and SoTL. So I oftentimes, when I work with people, I feel that tension, and how high teaching lies on their list of priority. And so, it takes sort of a lot of relationships, a lot of rapport to sort of cross that boundaries for myself and also for whoever I work with to overcome that and to become part of the SoTL community. So yeah, as a result, I think, there's a need for me to often leverage any support that I have at a higher level, mega level, and cross these boundaries to promote SoTL and hopefully one day increase its presence and value.
Thank you, Julie. Barbara, our fearless leader, how do you cross boundaries and which ones?
Well, as an academic developer, I've been privileged to kind of cross a lot of disciplines and work with people. And it kind of occurred to me that all these different disciplines do things differently. And I was asked once if I would run a workshop where I brought people together to think about ideas. And I thought, well, why don't I just make that even larger and work with teachers around teaching and learning? Because I found different people approach things at a different angle. So I started some projects across disciplinary, and then of course you want funding. So the best way to get funding is to do cross-institutional. So I brought people together from six disciplines to start with, and it was just a minefield. The richness of the conversations, the learning, and then teaching them how to write articles that are not positivist science articles was a new learning curve for me as well, bringing them together, but also teaching people to do that. When I had the opportunity to be part of one of the writing groups with SoTL, I jumped at the chance, and fortunately I was brought in, probably because I was an outlier being in New Zealand, but that's fine. I just loved that experience of listening to all the different people from different countries and the way they talked and what their ideas and institutions and different methodologies and approaches, and so then I had the opportunity to run one. I just jumped at it because I find the energy that comes from all the different people in just our group, for example, it just keeps me going.
Thank you very much, Barbara. I can see that there's a lot of reasons why we've all chosen to cross boundaries and which ones we cross most often depending on the situation and what we might need in the moment and who we like to work with. With that, I'd like to move on to speaking with Anne about the types of people that she seeks out to work with in SoTL the most? Or do they come to her, and how those kinds of partnerships are sustained?
Thanks, Analise. I am a faculty member in our School of Education, so I've had some training, obviously, in social science and educational research. So in terms of partnerships, and I think we've all sort of had the same variation and mentioned this in a different way, but SoTL work for me is both a reaching out and sort of responding to. So as you know, a faculty member needing publications, I would try to reach out to different people, and those partnerships are both other faculty from a writing, but instructional designers. I mean, what we have to, for me, remember is that if I'm studying teaching, I have to be good at teaching, so that entails reaching out to instructional designers who can actually help in that area. When I was similar to Barbara in a position in our Center for Learning and Teaching, I was tasked with developing and teaching SoTL to others. And so that was more of okay, I need to now be available. But through that, those partnerships, I've sort of responded to what I would assume like their needs might be and how to do that. So I think the beauty of SoTL, which I also want to tie back to our partnership, is this give and take, right? It's the reaching out, it's the responding to. And for me, that is both life-giving and challenging. And so we talk about brokering, but I think that added aspect of partnership is critical. There are times when I have been asked to partner, which I am willing to try, and other times when I, after that experience, will say, this was nice, thank you, we'll move on. And so I think that there's this tension there between how you act as a broker and how invested you become in a partnership. So again, I'm explaining it from my perspective, but I think as you listen to all of our voices, you hear that the fun, interesting, engaging work of SoTL is that it happens on multiple levels with multiple people at multiple times, and it keeps my work interesting and engaging. And I would say all of those things apply to the group that I've been involved in. There's both been the reaching out, I need your help, and responding to, and times when my colleagues have been like, thanks, you're done responding now, and be quiet, which was one of those times now. So I'll turn it over to you, Analise. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Anne. I guess what I find so extraordinary about our partnership is we all were drawn to the topic of boundary crossing. There was something about that just resonated with each of us, and we were all selected and got to work together. And it's almost 2 years now, 3 publications more or less submitted, and it's still going. And I have to say it's been really special to be part of this group as a student and to be uplifted and encouraged and mentored through this process, especially challenging me even just to host our discussion today. It's been a really great experience, and it's been very helpful in finding my voice in this space, which I always find participating in SoTL and all the different types of discussions we have always makes my cell biology research a lot stronger and gives me more perspective on that. And with that, I wanted to move on to Andy and have her share with us why she thinks that we've extended our partnership for 2 years and going.
I think that from the very first time that we met, both virtually and face-to-face, as a group of people, we really clicked together. And I think, you know, Heather talks about the two of you staying in your little tiny house, the fact that we got together to have meals together, that we shared not only the common experience of coming to the writing group in Atlanta, but once we got there, the example I was thinking about is when we wanted to start doing our own work, and how we as a group decided to move away from the other writing groups and go and find our own quiet space to work. And I was thinking back to that obviously there was a symbiosis amongst this group of people, who enjoyed each other's company, because I think that one of the things that really, we laugh a lot. We come together, we laugh, but we also do work. And it's really exciting and inspiring to continue to meet once a week with a group of people whose presence I enjoy. I want to come to these meetings. I want to catch up with everybody to find out what's new in their life, but I also am excited and stimulated in the conversations that we have around the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, around our own individual work, because it gives us that place and space outside of our everyday life and our everyday work that sometimes can become a bit of a drag, where we start to hear what other people are doing and we're engaging in different ideas in a really diverse way. And so I think the diversity, as well as that little bit of space outside of the grind every week, is really exciting for us to connect both intellectually and as a group of friends.
And I guess I would add to that Barbara's leadership. So if there's a way to spotlight on Barbara, but I mean, I think, and I know you're going to deny it, but right, that I think that we can't overlook the fact that there was someone consistently saying, we're meeting, here's your assignments, and not in a mean way, but just as an accountability, because and you were good at including all of us. And so you framed, and for me coming into SoTL, you also mirrored and mentored kind of what Analise was saying, how to do SoTL work and create partnerships. And so if you're going to engage in this group, you need to have someone who has that leadership, servant leadership mentality and role.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready to move to the slide again?
Yeah, so last week we had another discussion, and we were trying to figure out the so what of today's presentation. And what we came up with was that we've often referred to our group as a land of misfit toys with a common purpose. That is, in a nutshell, why we stuck together, as Andy and everyone else has so nicely shared with us today. We've built a small, significant international network that is no equivalent in our respective institutions. As we continue to broker SoTL spaces for others around us, we realize how vital it is to those taking the SoTL plunge to have a safety net. And we have tried to be that safety net for each other. With this group, we've found our own safety net, a space where we can explore SoTL ideas, methodologies, and theoretical frameworks that we have never considered before. With this group, there is no deficit, no question about one's credibility, only vastly different skill sets that create a greater sum than the parts. We remain committed to an intellectually rigorous work and to embracing our collective experiences as part of our inquiry process. I wanted to end with this picture of a roads crossing, because even though we're all traveling our different paths during the week, we all come together in this beautiful centerpiece where we have our weekly discussions. As you can see, we all are at home for the most part at the moment. Julie always has the coolest backgrounds. Genevieve is monochrome, matching her amazing, beautiful new home. And thank you very much for joining us today and having me lead the conversation. If you'd like more information, cheers.
Well done, Analise.